Welcome to our discussion. I'm Shane Rao, Research Vice President for IDC. I'm here with IDC Group Vice President for Business Software Solutions, Mike Fauscette, and Apparancy CEO and founder, Karen Watts. Today we're focusing on the keys to making better business decisions by taking process automation to the next level. A level that not only frees up today's executives and employees to perform more strategic tasks, but also to address new compliancy and productivity demands. Welcome both of you to our program. Thank you.
Thanks, Shane.
Thank you. We'd like to ask Mike if you would please tee up our discussion by telling us why we're still talking about process automation here in the 21st century. Haven't today's technology solutions pretty much automated every single action already, from hiring and onboarding employees through operational events and even logistics around shipping products or delivering processes?
Yeah. Well, I think to really kind of get a picture of this, or why are we talking about automation today, process automation today, you need to think about the way that business is changing. You need to think about the way that current software products function and kind of the interrelationship between them and what I'd say is the next generation of business solutions. So what I mean is today we have all of these systems I call systems of transaction, and that's your traditional ERP systems, financial systems, human resources, and those systems were designed in a period when we were really still focused around the industrial age company. And in an industrial age company, you want to create a situation where you have a rigid, repeatable process, because that drives efficiency. So the more efficient you are, the better chance you have of making some sort of profit. Now, let's accelerate, add the internet, add a bunch of these other pillars we talk about, mobile and cloud and social and data and analytics. You add all these things to where we are, and you realize that we're not in an industrial age anymore. We're in an information age. And in an information age, we have to do something different than what the base systems provide. Now, companies have a lot of systems. Those systems are important, and they've automated a certain amount of what you could automate, and that's fine. But what we did in the meantime was create rigidity and flexibility, and that's the problem. So now we're at a point where we're trying to look at this and say, okay, I have people, information workers, I have data, lots of it, too much of it probably, and I have what we call big data, which is just useless data. It's just a big pile of useless data. And so now how do I make sense out of that? How do I take this and figure out how I solve the 80% of the work that happens outside that system of transaction, and how do I do it in a way that's flexible and scalable and is social and drives to data in a real context so it's usable.
Mm-hmm. So Mike, if transactional systems and processes are holdover from an industrial age, what are the new requirements for organizations to thrive going forward?
Well, so first of all, just because I say they're a holdover, it doesn't mean that there's not some point to them. You still, if you can't ship a product or take an order, you probably don't care about the rest of the stuff we're going to talk about today. So solve that problem first, right? But let's go beyond that. So, okay, I solved that problem. I can do the basic things my business has to do to stay alive. Now what do I have to do? Well, so we've moved from this kind of make-sell culture and environment and business environment, so I make something, I sell it, to an environment that is really about flexibility. It's really about what I call the sense and respond model. So what does that mean? Well, it means that I have to listen, collect information in a work context, and drive that to the right person or people so that they can make some decision. And it's not a single flow process like before. It's an iterative thing that has to continue all along. So my new business model is sense and respond. And that means that in every part of my organization, I have to figure out how I can get the right data in the right context to the right person at the right time, or people at the right time to make the right decision. And that's an ongoing thing. So I need processes, I need systems of decision, I need systems of relationship, because I have data and I have people, and I got to get them together at the right time and in the right workflow context. And my transaction data is still important, but all my unstructured data is also just as important. And so what we see, survey now shows, in some surveys we've seen up to 80% of people's time spent outside the system. Well, that seems a little crazy, right? But it's because we've automated all these things, and now they're up here in the exception land, and there's just too many exceptions. And until we can figure out a way to take ad hoc decisions and make them process-based, so it's not rigid process, but it's still process-based, then we can start to automate the way that we take this next model forward. And it's not automation in the way we've thought about it, but there is still a technology that we need to be able to pull all those things together.
So Karen, turning to you, as the founder and CEO of a new company called Apparancy that is aimed at these new requirements, can you tell us what led to you seeing an opportunity here?
Well, there's a huge opportunity, but just to give you a little background, prior to Apparancy, I founded another company called Corfino a little over 5 years ago. And we did, and it was based in the finance and accounting space. So talk about your industrial age and your defined processes and your need to kind of take, a piece of data, move it down the line, from an order to, paying that vendor for that product. So I looked at that industry a while ago and I said, there's got to be a way to automate that. The accounting field was a little archaic and a little less willing to make changes. So we put together a solution that was process-based, that used the cloud, and automated those processes so that workers could at least get some of the information and move the data down the line and get out of some and use multiple systems, which we were talking about. There's multiple systems. So if you fast forward that to why Apparancy exists, because we looked at that from the accounting world, and we said, okay, we solved the problem there, but as Mike says, there's a huge problem, especially even more so with the cloud and SaaS solutions. I'll give a good example of one of our finance companies, not a very big company, 7 million in revenues. They're working with 7 different SaaS solutions. Their accounting department is 2 people, and they have 7 systems. And the data is in 7 systems, and they're trying to make sense of their data. The executive team is trying to make decisions, and they can't. And those systems aren't talking to each other. So we took what we had done with Corfino, and we realized that finance is obviously our background. And again, in finance, you have to have compliance, which we and the audit trails, and make sure everyone does what they're supposed to do. But we said, hey, let's take this outside of the finance and accounting space, and let's take the technology piece and allow it for multiple different verticals and multiple different areas of the organization. And so, again, echoing what Mike says, people need to have that information at their fingertips to be able to do what they need to do. And it's not just doing it, it's knowing what pieces of information they need to do to make it. Even a simple new hire. Is it a budgeted hire? I don't know. It wouldn't be nice if I could see the budget when I was asked that question as you're going through the process. So we've taken what Mike said with these ideas of getting all this data, we've put it in one screen, one login, and said everything you need to make a decision is going to be there regardless of what system it's coming from.
So Mike, do you have anything to add to what Karen has said?
Well, I think it's exactly what we were talking about. How do we get this context around it? So if I have the ability to get the data to the right group of people in that work context at the right time, then I can make these ongoing repetitive decisions. I can make them more effectively, and that is frankly competitive advantage today. That's
Absolutely.
The difference in the way that we think of competitive advantage. Industrial age, it's that rigidity, that inflexibility, the repeatability of process. That was the secret sauce. And today, it's the obvious opposite of that. It's the opportunity to adapt and be flexible in an infinite number of ways in this new connected world, so that I can, as a business, make decisions and refine those decisions as I get more and more and more information to the right people at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. At Corfino, we saw just the defined processes we could, by using technology, we could automate and save people, anywhere from 40 to 75%. Now with the Apparancy solution, going back to that, we can have social people talking. We can have, you can be in there, you can have a social interaction with somebody else in the team or even a vendor and say, hey, quick question, That's automatically captured as part of the record, so when it goes down the line, that history is there, as opposed to, let me look through that email where I asked that person that question. I got it here somewhere, and it's then it's so efficient to be able to have that information there.
So Karen, please explain to us how Apparancy works, and tell us, does it replace existing systems, or does it unite all of them?
It's actually uniting. So the best way to think of it is you can log in from any device. So you have a very familiar interface, whether it's your phone, whether it's your tablet, whether it's your PC. You log in, obviously role-based and security-based and all those kind of givens are there, and you will see kind of a list of your tasks. So whether you're an HR manager, whether you're a VP of engineering, whatever you are, your tasks are there. And also tasks or processes that you can start. So if you're an authorized hirer, you can start a new hire flow. If you can purchase, then you'll be able to purchase. And obviously, if you're only allowed to purchase a certain limit, that's built into your profile. And then you literally just kick it off. And then as you're going through it, I'll use that new hire example. Is it a budgeted hire? The budget software will be pulled in, and you'll see your budgeted hires, and you'll say, yes, it's that budget hire. Boom, this is the salary it was supposed to be. Oh, here's the new salary. Oh, that needs to kick off a budget exception process, and that starts the whole thing. Then it moves on down the line. HR approves it. Then you've got, then it's done, and that employee's hired. So at the same time, it's now shooting information to the payroll system saying, hey, new employee's been hired. Here's a start date. HR person is start kicking off an insurance enrollment forms. Now with the ACA, it's kicking off a whole other set of workflows that are required now that that employee has been on board, and it's sending a note to the new employee, provisioning a login for the company portal. So right there you've got, I've lost track, but something like 4 or 5 or 6 different systems, and you've done a new hire. And you've never left our system. So you have all that information being pulled in from the budget system, from the payroll system, and it's also being shot back out. So again, in the payroll, the new employee record's created. So we are uniting them, and going back to that earlier example, that customer is now obviously testing our software, and they're not logging into 7 systems, they're logging into 1. And they're able to get their work done a lot more efficiently and more intelligently.
So Mike, from your position as a market researcher, is there anything that you want to add from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's the direction the market has to take, and it's kind of this transition of we have the transaction systems, and then we had analytics, but they were off in a corner, and we started to build these social systems, and they were over here, and so we already had systems that were siloed, and then we created new silos, and that's not really how you solve that problem, right? The problem is we've got to get across those silos. Organizationally, yes. Behaviorally, yes. But also systems. And so it's this way to take data and push it out and really embed it in the old systems. Well, you can't just open the old system up. It's got to be a way to do that, right? So I think that there's a layering process that happens now, and it's almost like you step out and you say, okay, there's a new user experience that is social and pulls all these other pieces together. That's actually really valuable, because now I have people and data at the right place at the right time and in the right context, and that's really what we're talking about. And that sounds really simple, but as we know, it's really not, because our systems are very scattered today, and they don't interoperate easily. And I'm an old implementation consultant for many years along my path of growth here, and I can tell you that was the part we always hated the most. How do you tie everything together? Well, if you can do it at a different level now in a different way, then you really do have something. We're not doing analytics in a closet, and we're not leaving the transaction data scattered across 10 silos. If we can pull all those in, and then pull all these new data sources in, all the unstructured pieces, and get them in the right hands, then we really do have the capability to run a sense and respond business in a very effective way.
Karen, I have one specific question for you about Apparancy. Aren't you adapting Apparancy to help organization with the new requirements of the Affordable Care Act?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, when we had kind of gone part of the way with Corfino, and then we realized there was a bigger opportunity and looked across other verticals. And obviously, the Affordable Health Care Act is a big opportunity. You've got a bunch of disparate systems. You have patient records. You have all sorts of things. You now have the government tax in there, and there's a lot of processes. And on top of that, you've got a lot of compliance requirements. So coming out of the finance space, where we've kept companies Starbucks compliant and audit compliant, we get that. And we also get it in the point where you have to be able to prove what you did, but you don't want to make it so onerous that that it's super expensive to prove what you did. So we have that background, and we looked at the passing of that law, very similar to when Starbucks was passed and those types of things. It's like, hey, okay, there's a set of requirements. Let's figure out the most efficient way to, get companies in compliant, even providers on the provider side, get, again, all the information they need from disparate systems available so that they can make the decisions they need to make, and at the end of the day, focus on their job, which is actually providing health care to the American people. So again, we can take our platform, and that's what we're doing with Apparancy. That's why the company's a split, and basically adapting it. And healthcare is one of our very first verticals with Apparancy.
I see. Mike, do you see value in a solution like this?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the problem we've seen, and we talked about it in pretty good detail. So, if you have a capability to really pull all those things together, but at the same time cover your governance and compliance issues, because that is still a part of the business culture we live in, right? I mean, yeah, the IRS still exists, and all the other agencies. But I mean, and even more than that, each industry has some very specific things they have to meet. So, we saw this in the evolution of social systems. It's very important to have this open capability to type across the silos, but also you still have to, in the back of this, meet those compliance and governance requirements, whatever those may be, and they vary by industry. So, I think there's a lot of value in. It's almost approaching this from the outside in instead of from the inside out, but because we've already proven that in the inside we haven't been able to close those gaps. So now we're layering on this capability above that, because it still has a foundation that's really important to us, but it also then has the capability above that, which covers off on this capability of that whole, get data to the right people at the right time, and do it in a compliant governance, enabled sort of way, depending on the industry. So that, I think that has a lot of value.
Very good. Thank you. Any kind of summing up questions about the market or something about Apparancy that you'd like to say?
Well, I mean, I would just say I've covered this whole kind of social business evolution that we've seen over the last several years, and when I first started to look at it, I really saw all these disparate extra pieces. But then over time, I realized that that we have to move from this kind of situation where we have social applications and they're separate, into a situation where every application is social. And that's a very different mindset. And at the same time, we have to move from analytics to decisions. How do I really make decisions? And so those things all come together inside of the systems that you have in a way that helps you get, build a social business, but it's not extra. It's a part of everything that you do. It's just a part of the work, and that's really the important thing to think about. Getting everything together in a way that lets people do their jobs more effectively and do that sense and respond, activity on a recurring basis with good data that continues to be good across that decision-making, evolution.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Mike. I'm IDC Research Vice President Shane Rao. I've been speaking with IDC Group VP for Business Software Solutions, Mike Fauscette, and with Apparancy CEO and founder, Karen Watts. Thank you very much for joining us today.